Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. I am joined by SGPN's finest today, Justin Bruni. How are we doing this morning?
Doing good, sir. Doing good, sir. Happy Sunday. How are you?
I'm living the dream where I've in restaurant week right now in Colorado, which is it's this crazy time of year where people just go out to eat for 10 days straight. It's little discounted restaurants. Yeah, it's awesome for everybody. I'm getting my butt kicked and just running around like with a chicken with my head cut off at night.
Is this like a statewide holiday?
It's like Valentine's Day. You know what I mean? It's like just something made up that they did, restaurants, get a bunch of people come out to eat. But the point being that there's people that go to a different restaurant every night for 10 days straight. And I'm a bartender, if this is your first time maybe listening. And man, it has been tough on me, So I have, 6-day work weeks this week. So I am, like I always say on this podcast, but especially today, I'm feeling extra fresh. So
are you participating as a patron? Are you getting your rounds in?
This is my only day off in the 10-day stretch of restaurant week, and I will be getting back to it for 7 days starting tomorrow. So, and you were even asking me, it would have been a better time to message you instead of answering you in the podcast, but unfortunately, I will be working tomorrow night and won't be able to do that underdog draft. So.
I thought Mondays were open. I guess it's a different time
right
now.
just this week, but yes, right, unfortunately.
I'm going to hold you to that.
With that, I just want to, before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to WinBet. The SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WinBet. WinBet is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WinBet has what you need to win. Sign up today, bet $100, and get $100 at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WinBet. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. State restrictions apply. We're also brought to you by the College Basketball Experience. March Madness is heating up, and you need to subscribe to the College Basketball Experience. It's awesome, baby. You see, I think they were expecting me to do a Dick Vitale awesome baby there.
It's awesome, baby.
Yeah, I can't do that. That is expecting too much from me on these ad reads, everybody. That's awesome. But
you gotta bring out your inner Gus Johnson.
I can't do that. I listened to a lot of Dick Vitale too. I'm a Kansas Jayhawk fan. I grew up about 20 minutes away from Lawrence, so. Even though I went to see you, big Jayhawk fan, so I'll be rooting for them, even though they got their butts kicked yesterday by Texas. So we will see what happens there. But we also, with that, let's get into some NFL Combine stuff. This is what the big news is of the week. This is what the dynasty analysts and everybody freaks out about all year. This is the time to overreact. Anthony Richardson, my goodness, is he the quarterback one in dynasty? That's the type of overreactions we're looking for today. So. With that, we will dive into some of the winners. We were going to talk about some winners and losers today. And the first name I had up here is Bryce Young. And I had him as a winner today because he did it. You know what I mean? He avoided disaster. He cleared the 5'10" hurdle,
right.
He got right about in line with Kyler Murray's size, not anywhere near the athlete that Kyler Murray is or the arm strength, really. But he also got over 200 pounds. Now, that seems to be a lot of fake, kind of packing on burgers before the combine started. Probably more naturally at 185 or 190, but I did, he avoided disaster to weigh in below 200 pounds or have a height below 5'10". That would have cratered his dynasty value. He's my quarterback 2 behind Stroud right now. And, I'm succumbing to the hype and, I don't have him as my quarterback 3 behind Anthony Richardson yet, but if Anthony Richardson goes top 10, I will have him ahead of Bryce Young. Likely. Bryce Young it's such an outlier prospect in my opinion. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts, Jess. I've heard the comparison, I was listening to Matt Kelly this week, the comparison of Baker Mayfield, he's a lot more, I think he's a lot more prolific passer, but the size is a big concern. So I just wanted to hear some of your thoughts.
Well, I think it's going to be tough when you have CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson bookending you like in your draft stock, right? So you go like big guy, little guy, big guy, right? And man, Richardson looks so damn good. He looked like a pure athlete. I think Bryce Young is just going to hold, pretty consistently where he's at right now with his draft stock. I don't think there's going to be anything that's really going to drastically move him up or down. If anything, you might see an NFL team prioritize maybe Richardson over him, maybe Will Levis at kind of like a, someone that's really going deep into the scouting, I guess. But I couldn't see him falling any farther than that, outside of the top 4 by any means. He didn't participate in anything, did he?
No, yeah, he weighed himself. He got his
Yeah,
height,
that's it.
and he was out. He did not want to look. He did not want to stand next to Stroud and Richardson out there. I don't think.
Smart
And,
guy.
and Levis did the same thing.
Yeah, a smart guy. I get it. I don't know. I mean, we'll get to Levis here soon. I thought he was looking pretty good, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, the inaction of him yesterday is just going to keep him very steady where he's at. As far as like startup drafts and things like that, and your rookie drafts, I don't think he's going to budge one way or the other drastically, if that makes any sense. And I don't know if it again, like, because you didn't really see anything out of him. More accuracy from inaction, we'll say. You're just kind of rounding out, like you'd said, the weight, the frame, the interview process. There really isn't that much to take from him. So again, at this point, I don't think he's going to be moving up or down the board drastically. Like I said, the most I could see him falling is maybe a couple of spots.
I know we're still evaluating, but is he your quarterback one at this point? Because I'm just, it's just such an outlier.
CJ Stroud or Bryce Young?
Or I have Stroud ahead.
Yeah, Stroud would be my number one for sure. He did everything right yesterday. He was looking absolutely amazing, and he was just that guy. Like he essentially kept himself in the lead without any blemishes whatsoever. Yesterday, everything went well for him. He's going to stay up there. If anything, Stroud's performance, probably pressurizes the Texans and the Colts more so to try and make that move up to the number one spot.
Agreed. I agree with that. And, there's just no, I was reading stuff this week, that the Colts can't let the Houston Texans get Bryce Young. And that seems like a little silly. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'd be begging for the first pick to take Bryce Young if I was another team, because it's just such an outlier. There's no player. Like, I was looking up player comps. Like, Doug Flutie is like the only player that's ever like existed at his size. You know what I mean? And been like a remotely successful NFL quarterback. Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are a lot better athletes, especially Russell Wilson earlier. They might be comparable now, but Russell Wilson earlier in his career, a lot more dynamic athlete. Kyler Murray is a lot thicker, has a lot more arm strength to him, a lot more dynamic athlete. It's just, we're asking Bryce Young to be a elite fantasy quarterback, especially in a single quarterback league. You're looking for the top 12 quarterbacks. If you don't have any rushing upside, which, he's mobile, but he doesn't have any like rushing upside that's going to add to his fantasy value. You're asking him to be, a big, a Patrick Mahomes level, not quite that, but a big time level passer. And, that's just a big risk, considering his size, considering, just like a lot of his limitations. I'll be avoiding it with probably my first 2 or 3 picks in a super flex draft.
I would be, so for example, I have a 104. My hope is that he would go off the board before a 104 in a league where I'm desperate for quarterback. That's my hope, is that he's going to take up one of those spots, because if I'm in a situation with one of my dynasty teams and I'm rebuilding, like, you guys check out my Twitter, you'll see my pinned tweet. I got back a bunch of picks for Jalen Hurts, right? It's a project team. I'm blowing it up. I got back the 106. I already had the 104. I'm not going to be looking to restart that team up with Bryce Young at the helm. Most likely it'll go Bijan, Stroud, hopefully Bryce. That's what I'm hoping for. And then I'll load into 4 without really having to feel the pressure of taking an Anthony Richardson or a Will Levis over him. Because those are the top 4 that I'm looking at right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's Bijan Robinson, and then likely 3 quarterbacks going. Jahmyr Gibbs will be in there, JSN.
It's going to depend on your team build, right? Like, if you're sitting there somehow with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and a terrible team, you're taking a running back. Like, let's be real, or a receiver, whatever. And
I always think it's quarterbacks are so valuable in super flex leagues, but man, I'll tell you, if you were a bad team last year and you're drafting a rookie quarterback early in your super flex draft, you're probably going to end up with an early pick again in 24. You know what I mean? It's not, those quarterbacks are not going to be game changers for you likely in their first year. You're probably, unless you kind of set yourself up, for that, and you're set up, in other areas to take a big step forward. Those so the running backs and the wide receivers to a certain extent have a lot more ability to affect you this year and improve your play this year, in my opinion.
Sure.
So that'll be something for people to consider. But that's a good segue, because now the man of the day, the Anthony Richardson, a god among men, just Hercules out there, Superman. I've heard it all. AR-15, the new nickname.
He called himself Cam Jackson. Like, that's what his buddies call him.
Okay.
I love it.
I see the athletic comparison. That's about where I think it may stop for now for me. You know what I mean? It's he's 6'4", 244 pounds, 40.5 inch pitch vertical, insane. 100 percentile score, broad jump, 100th percentile. 40-yard dash. That's insane. There was I think there was 2 faster combines in NFL history, at least, or maybe like for a long period of time. I don't remember. I didn't write it down here, but RG3 ran slightly faster than him 10 years ago, but that's the only one in recent memory. And there was one other player that I hadn't heard of, and I apologize if he's some like 1980s quarterback who was fantastic I'd never heard of, but McNeil or something like that. But yeah, he's in rare territory regardless. Yeah, it's insane. But here's where the comparisons stop at Cam Newton, in my opinion. Cam Newton had a prolific final season at Auburn. Although Anthony Richardson, the offense was a mess, we're talking about a guy 2,500 yards, minimal playing time prior to his junior year, 2,500 yards passing last year, 53% completion percentage, and 17-9 touchdown to interception ratio. That's not screaming, passing ability, but like people were saying, he's not a flawed passer. He's just a raw passer. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a lot of mechanical issues or anything like that. And he did make some nice throws at the combine yesterday. So, where are your thoughts on Anthony Richardson? Are we just full steam ahead here on the hype train, or do you have some
I feel a lot better, to be honest with you. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I was taking some shots with him in some best ball drafts. My startups haven't really like rolled in just yet. A lot of people that I play with, they want to wait for landing spots. Where I'm not necessarily drafting with like Devy folks, more just like dynasty oriented. But man, I have to say, I feel a lot better about grabbing some more shares of him in best ball, moving him up my board in dynasty. I would be looking potentially at him or Will Levis at that 104 that I was talking about, in a rebuild with a quarterback in Superflex. I thought the passing was looking good. There were some inaccurate throws. The deep ball and the arm strength was there for sure. But, it's also tough, too, because you're throwing to receivers you're not necessarily familiar with. You're going to see some of those bad throws maybe be kind of combined with some slow feet from the receivers, whatever. You have to be able to, like, make those throws, with these guys. Again, like I said, like, you're not that familiar with. So I thought a couple of those I would be like, okay, I'll give that one to the receiver. Oh, that's a good ball. And then, oh, there's an inaccurate pass. So it was kind of up and down. But I thought that the framework that we saw from him is very strong. I liked his dropbacks. I liked his footwork. I liked the arm strength and the athleticism, everything that you had just detailed, the broad jump, the vertical, the speed. Like it's really all there is from like a total package standpoint. As far as like a first year absolute takeoff, it's going to be all about the right system, the right coach, and the right playbook. You're going to need to go somewhere where they're willing to give you run first opportunities. If you look back to last year, how the Bears were poorly managing Justin Fields' skills and assets early in the season, he just wasn't running. They just figured, oh yeah, we can still be a pass first offense. No, it took a little bit of time. They developed them into more of a run first offense, or the team is a run first offense. And then that team just started scoring points like absolutely crazy. So if he goes somewhere where they're willing to work on him as a project, I think he could be a very fruitful return. But if he's a starter week 1 in the NFL, I'm with you. You're probably going to be picking in the top 5 again in your dynasty league, right? Like, unless he lands in a very good situation, kind of similar to RG3, like his rookie season. He landed with the Commanders, Redskins at the time, whatever, and they set him up for success. I think it was like his first 10 or 12 passes were completions, because they had just set up the playbook for him so easily. Kind of similar to Cam Newton. When he went to the Panthers, he wasn't really a big X's and O's guys, but they set up a system for him to be able to come in and compete and be efficient, right? Like, it was something about like literally only memorizing like one half of the field or something weird like that of the playbook. So I think he could be a very good prospect. It's just going to depend on the landing spot at this point. But I feel like these teams in the top 10 should be more comfortable looking at him. Like the Falcons, like the Texans. I feel like they should feel a little bit better about him right now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because Cam Newton, I forget, I don't have the numbers here, but, he had a prolific passing rookie season. He had one of the best passing rookie seasons. I think he maybe set the record for passing yards or something that year for a rookie. And Anthony Richardson, we thought Cam, we always thought, Cam Newton was never an elite level passer. Nobody ever viewed him like that. And, Anthony Richardson is another level of raw. I'm not saying he can never get there, but, it's unlikely.
Let me ask you this. Who would you rather, like, in a startup right now, given their ADP, and this is a big ADP question because this first name is going to go farther ahead, and I know that we've talked about him before. We're going to talk about him today. Anthony Richardson or Trey Lance? You have the Trey Lance landing spot right now. you don't know about Anthony Richardson yet. Who do you think is a better prospect based off of what you've seen?
That's a great question. I would personally go with draft capital pending.
Because you know that you're going to have to take a bigger risk drafting Lance earlier. You know that.
You're right. It's Anthony Richardson at ADP. You're right. In a vacuum, I would take Trey Lance, but you're right. At ADP, I would take Anthony Richardson. I would still think he's probably, that could climb up quite a bit. He's probably going quarterback. I would think high-end quarterback too, especially right if we were drafting, if a quarterback happened today, he'd probably be going high-end quarterback 2 range. So
I believe if we were drafting today, he would go quarterback 2 off your boards for sure. I know, again, in the Twitterverse, anything can happen. I know, shout out Dave Heilman, boots on the ground down in Indy, getting us that live content from the combine. He's doing a killer job over there. But I know I saw him retweet something the other day. Someone took Anthony Richardson 101. Like, that's crazy. What running backs would you have to pass up on Bijan? Like, you'd have to have Brees, Jonathan Taylor, and I don't know, CMC. Who are you going to pass up on? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't have to. There'd be nothing that could make me pass up on him, just because I'm always firmly take the best player available.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of like the NBA draft. There's only so many good players. So, I think it's probably, it's never a good idea to reach on somebody for need. Just take the best player available, work out a trade later.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is just like the hype will take over your drafts. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're sitting up there, just try to temper expectations a little bit. Just don't try to fall into the complete media mob. You know what I mean?
I don't envy anyone who's doing a rookie draft before the NFL drafts, so we can get that determination. It's wheels up if he gets top 10 draft capital, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
With that, I'm going to jump into Jackson Smith Njigba. I was hoping I got that last name right. We'll see.
Yep.
I nailed it? All right,
yep,
perfect. I know there's some subtleties in the pronunciation, but I would say he did more with less yesterday. He decided not to run the 40-yard dash, had I think the fastest shuttle time since 2013.
He did. I thought it was the 3 cones that he killed.
I had the shuttle written down.
Maybe it was both.
Maybe it was the 3 cones. He killed both, but I think one of them was like a record since 2014 or 2013. So
you said the shuttle? Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, he did it under 4 seconds on the shuttle. Okay,
yeah,
and the 3 cone.
The 3 cone was very good too.
6.5, 6.57. He won both.
Yep. And so he had a very good day yesterday, decided not to run the 40, probably smart. The fact that he was very athletic and tested very well in these likely tells me that he just knew that he wasn't going to run a 40. I don't think it was health based. I just think he knew that he wasn't going to run a great 40. Decided to let everyone else hurt themselves today, because that's what most of the wide receivers did yesterday. They hurt themselves draft stock. So JSN looks, especially with Jordan Addison, measuring it, short, small, not a great athletic testing. JSN's looking like he could end up being the clear wide receiver 1 in the draft. If he locks in like a 4.55 40-yard dash, something in that, especially anything less than that, he's the locked in wide receiver 1 at his pro day, I think. But this is a guy who had, outproduced Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave as a sophomore. And then his other 2 years combined at Ohio State, he had 23 targets. In those other 2 years combined, 23 targets, 1 season outproducing Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So, we're drafting him based on that one terrific season. There's concerns about his straight line speed, him playing in the slot. What are your feelings about JSN after this week?
I mean, I don't think he's really moved. He was number 1 on my list regardless. He was already my wide receiver 1. I had Addison as kind of like a dark horse that could supplant him with a good performance this weekend. Didn't really happen. I mean, I would say that Addison was just subpar average. And like you had said, like, he exposed himself to more risk by doing more this weekend, right? And it seemed like, JSN's group, whatever, his entourage, his agent, whatever, they gave him the correct playbook here, the right notes to follow. Because like we've said, the inactivity has been more fruitful for some of these guys, because you're letting other players, essentially lower their stock. It's really going to depend all on his landing spot for JSN. I think he's a great prospect. As far as like the college stuff, I really kind of throw it out at this point, because like you said, like, he had those scenarios where he was better than elite guys that we've seen in the NFL and then not used whatsoever. So you really just have to take that with like kind of a grain of salt and look at the build going forward. At 6'1", 196, I think that's a great kind of like median frame. You're not on like the low end of like Devontae Smith coming into the NFL, but you're also not at like the top peak of like a DK Metcalf, right? You're kind of just like right there in the middle. And he's also highlighting all of that, like, you know, kind of median size with speed and strength and agility. So I love the opportunity to grab him in drafts. He would be someone that I would consider as a top 5 pick in dynasty startup if I'm thirsty at receiver, because to me it's looking most likely like Bijan, those quarterbacks, a Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you're kind of going back and forth with maybe like JSN and, you know, another. I don't know how you feel about like Zach Evans or Sean Tucker just yet, but I feel like I might be a little bit more comfortable still with JSN over those guys. Probably have him at a slight edge if I need a receiver. Like Jordan Addison a lot. I know we'll get to him soon, but I would still say that those two are well, JSN's probably number 1 still for sure. And then Addison may have slipped to 3, but I still think he's right there at 2 or 3.
Yeah, I still have him 1 and 2, but yeah, I have JSN just a little bit ahead now. I thought it was pretty close, but yeah, you know, I just feel a little bit more comfortable with, you know, with his measurements. And yeah, I mean, this is a guy who, you know, he was very, very good that one season. You know, he battled injuries last year, you know, so I'm willing to take the chance, you know, especially in that 1.5, 1.6 range in the super flex draft. I think he provides a lot of upside. You know, I think he's fairly safe too. I think we can count on, you know, maybe, you know, I think you know, I see a wide receiver 2. You know, I don't think he has a wide receiver 1 upside maybe, but I see, you know, a comfortable wide receiver 2, kind of in that Amari Cooper style role, you know, hopefully a little less boom bust than Amari Cooper, but, you know, just kind of that, just, you know, 6 foot, kind of 6'1" athlete. You know, it's not great, no, not a great athlete, but like I said, so I'll be targeting JSN there. I prefer the quarterbacks. I prefer a couple running backs ahead of him though.
Do you imagine he will be a first night draft pick? Like, do you think he's going in the first round?
Definitely.
JSN? Definitely. Okay.
I'd probably say top 15, top 20 for sure.
Okay. Okay.
We'll see, you know, just based on the fact that too, like we're seeing wide receivers get pushed up the draft, kind of like quarterbacks now with kind of the contracts that are being given out to wide receivers. You know, getting a cheap wide receiver on a contract for 4 or 5 years is very, I think, attractive to a lot of these teams. So we'll see about that. The next player I have up here is Luke Musgrave. Now, so Luke Musgrave is another player. You know, this is a guy we are drafting based on his athletic ability. He is 6'5", 253 pounds. 4.64 40-yard dash. That is in the 91st percentile for tight ends. You know, got compared to Greg Olsen a lot yesterday. His knee was cleared, you know, after just playing 2 games last season. Got full clearance on his knee, so that's looking good. Athletic, pass catching profile. But, you know, this guy does have just 47 career receptions, and he's played in 20 games over the 4 years. So we're talking about a guy who doesn't actually have a lot of experience on the field, but boy, does he look good in shorts. So Luke Musgrave, I think there's a great chance we see him go in the first round, and that, you know, that'll give him significant fantasy value, in my opinion.
Do you think he's going to go in the NFL first round?
I think he could.
Man,
I think he very well could late in that first round area. You know, you could see somebody like the Cincinnati Bengals. I think there's a couple candidates down there, so we'll see. You know, I definitely think he'll be early day 2, first half of day 2.
So do you think that Mayer's going in like the top 20?
I could see it. I could see 3 tight ends going in the round 1. I think we're going to talk about another guy who I could see getting in the round 1 conversation too.
Well, let's just bring him up because I kind of like. I mean, I like Luke Musgrave, but like you had just mentioned, like pretty green. You know what I mean? Darnell Washington. I'm assuming the other name that you're referring to.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like a freaking athlete. I guess the only thing that I have, like my biggest complaint about Luke Musgrave is that he doesn't seem like he's going to have great receiving skills. Like he seems like he's athletic and he's loose and he can move around freely. Like he carries his build very, very well. Like he's very slick, right? He's got great footwork, but I don't know if he has like the catch radius or catchability, you know, to be a top receiving, you know, tight end in the league. I guess that's my biggest thing. When I look at Darnell Washington, I see more of like an athlete, that big body target type of player that I'm looking for in the red zone. You know what I mean? I'm slipping on the like Jelani Woods type of like size, but that's the type of prospect that I see. That's kind of what he looks
like. Yeah, and he's a better athlete. Yeah, you know, it's Jelani Woods. Yeah, Jelani Woods they're similar size for sure.
Okay, that was kind of like my recency comp coming in. I think like when I was reading comps online, people were comparing him to Darren Fells, and I thought that was just kind of like ridiculous.
He compared himself to somebody really funny. He says he watches Mark Andrews, but he compared himself. God, why didn't I write that down? He compared himself to like some like tight end. You would be really surprised, like a very obscure tight end, like who has like, oh man, who is
Foster Moreau? Like,
No.
you're like, you're telling me that's what you can be, buddy? Really?
Yeah, you need hold the crowd while I'm googling this really quick. I need to find out who he compared himself to.
I mean, I feel like that's just a tall ask for Musgrave to get into the first round, and I could be, more naive on this. I'm not trying to like, plant my flag against him. I like the idea of him as a project, but being, I feel like he's a worse prospect than Cole Kmet, and Cole Kmet didn't feel like he should go in the first round, and I'm a Bears fan.
See, I feel like you're sleeping on Luke Musgrave, but he didn't have a lot of. I feel like he had, he's very, if you're looking for like the Kyle Pitts, this class, like the TJ Hawkinson, he compares very well to TJ Hawkinson too. So, he doesn't have the career production, but I watched some tape from him. I like what I saw. I'm not a huge tape guy. I like to let the NFL, I like to let the GMs making millions of dollars, like, make my decisions for me. So I like to, so I draft capital is big for me, so that's why I like to do my drafts at the end of the NFL draft.
So if you were hungry for tight end, I mean, in Dynasty, like I can't imagine a first round pick on him.
Mm-mm. I'm not doing it again. I'm done. I'm done doing that. I've done it too many times. I've gotten burned so many times by rookie tight ends and just tight ends in general. I'm tired of it. I'm not doing that again. Now I'll say like in the NFL, yeah, but it wouldn't be somebody I would target ahead of the mid second round at most, maybe probably late second round.
I was gonna say like mid round 3 would be kind of that territory. Maybe
I'd say late second, but yeah.
Yeah, I would. Well, that's what I was gonna say. I'd say late second probably for Washington, and I would probably say mid third for Musgrave, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm more of a late second, early third for these tight ends because Darnell Washington too. He has never had above an 8% target share, and he has 45 career receptions. These are both guys who, we're banking on what they can do, and learning under an NFL coach. And he was doing these crazy stuff in drills yesterday. Darnell Washington, he was just like rotating, catching those balls. I was like, oh man, so I knew he was going to do well.
Did Mayer do anything yesterday? I didn't see any highlights or news on him because Musgrave finished as a total score of 84, third, and Washington finished second with a total score of 85. But Washington's athleticism score ranked second in the combine for tight ends, and Musgrave was fourth.
Let me see. I haven't read, Musgrave, he wasn't, or Michael Mayer, he wasn't somebody I read too much about. I don't think he actually did. I don't think I really came across his numbers.
What was
trying
the
to
other
accumulate
thing?
so much information yesterday.
No, the hand size for Washington too. He's got 11-inch hands.
No, we were wrong. Michael Mayer did test yesterday. I'm reading a 4.70 40-yard dash, 73rd percentile speed score, and a 44th burst score. So yeah, he is nowhere near like the athlete. He wasn't expected to be, but yeah, he's nowhere near the athlete that these other two guys are.
Right.
But I still would have him as my tight end one in the class. But Luke Musgrave and Darnell Washington are very close behind. Man, I can't find that player comp. He got compared himself to like a long time like backup tight end. And I was just like, that's who you thought of to compare yourself to. But
he's got that dog in him. He's got that dog in him.
Oh, I'll find it at some point. But yes, we'll with that, I'm just going to give one more quick shout out to our pals over at WynnBET. WynnBET is the official online sportsbook of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. WynnBET is active in a bunch of states, and there are a ton of ways to win, including live betting and same-game parlays, aka WynnBET's Build Your Own Bet. March Madness is almost here, plus plenty of ways to win getting down on the NBA, NHL, and XFL. Sign up today to receive a special offer. Bet $100, get $100, limited to state availability. And, of course, for our DJs only, if you hit the biggest long shot parlay of the week, you get a $1,000 free credit. There's so much to choose from. All you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET so they know we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at wynnbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. The SGPN merch store also continues to add new items to the store every day. Head over to store.sportsgamblingpodcast.com to get your free favorite shirt, hats, sweats, and hoodies. My personal favorites are the hoodies. I wear those. It's always cold out here in Colorado, so I wear a lot of the hoodies. And just in time for March, 10% off when you spend more than $40 and use code MADNESS. All right. The next name I have up here is Will Levis, my final winner of the day. He did not test. He was smart. He did not want to stand next to CJ Stroud, especially Anthony Richardson out there. That seemed to be the thing. You know, nobody wanted to be compared to him.
I think he should have. I was actually impressed by Mr. Levis. I thought he should have been standing next to those dudes. He was looking damn good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He looked good in the throwing drills, you know, so that and that's what he did. So I think it was a smart play for him. You know, he played to his strength, and that's what he does. You know, we knew he had an arm, and that's what he showed off at the NFL Combine. You know, and that's why I think, you know, it's not, they're different players a little bit, but I do compare him to Zach Wilson just a little bit. You know, has all those physical tools, had the physical makeup. You know, interviews pretty well. So. But yeah, just a little bit raw, you know, so there's a lot of risk to him too. And that, you know, that's what I compare to, just a little bit different players. But like I said, that kind of similar risk level is what I would compare to, you know, taking him with an early first round pick. So, you know, in my super flex rookie drafts, you know, I think he falls somewhere probably right behind Jahmyr Gibbs for me, and him and JSN are a real conversation. I think JSN has a lot better chance of hitting, of course. But Will Levis does play that premium position and does have, I would say, probably top 12, top 15 upside with that arm. What do you think? You know, I know you said you were impressed with him yesterday. What did you see?
He was driving the ball, buddy. Yeah. I mean, he was burying the ball downfield. I felt bad because there were a couple of times where the receiver came up lame. I think one guy even fell down, he fell down mid-run, and it was a deep ball too. I mean, the arm looks great. His build looks great. He looks much bigger than I thought he was. Buddy's been hitting the gym, eating them nanners. So he's got great arm strength, footwork, maybe a little too touchy-tappy. You can clean that up for sure. As far as a prospect, he blew the lights out for me. I would be looking at him anywhere from pick 6 to 8 or 9 in dynasty startups. Again, it's going to depend on how hungry you are. It's going to depend on the picks and players that go off the board ahead of him. You know, if I'm looking at him, like I said, or Bryce Young, right now he looks a lot better in my opinion.
I'll tell you, that's bold. That's bold.
I feel a lot more comfortable. Well, Bryce Young's going to need to get to throwing, buddy. He's going to need to get to doing his individual workouts on the Twitter and you know, making himself look a little bit better, doing a little bit better job selling him. But what I saw from Levis's arm, just like his arm ability, I felt like I was watching Justin Herbert's combine. I felt like I was watching Josh Allen's, because his power and his delivery downfield looked very enticing to me. He's not going to be your rushing upside type of guy, which obviously, yeah, sure, Bryce Young would give that to you. He's definitely going to add that into the mix, right? But if you're looking for someone that's going to deliver the ball down the field with velocity and power, this is a passing league right now. I think NFL teams need to start moving Levis up their boards.
Yeah, and like I said, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't. He's someone I would consider. You know, I prefer Jahmyr Gibbs. You know, just in the vacuum right now. Maybe if he goes in the top 5 picks, that could all change. But you know, in a vacuum, I prefer the 3 quarterbacks ahead of him.
Sure,
I have Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson. And then
if you need a quarterback, though, you're not gonna be targeting, you know, Gibbs. You know what I mean? It just depends on your situation.
I'm always best player available in rookie drafts, just because they're you know, it's like I compare it to the NBA draft. You know, the NBA draft, there's 10 good players in the NBA draft every year. You know, so most likely you're not drafting anybody good, and that's like the fantasy football draft. You know what I mean? Most players are not going to hit. The NBA, draft,
it's like top 3, but yeah, I feel that.
In the NBA, like a top 10 picks, that's like a 50% chance to hit. And you know, there's guys who have been playing in the league for 15 years who have been sitting on a bench who are better than you. You know what I mean? Who have been sitting on a bench for 15 years, been practicing NBA basketball for 50, 60 hours a week all since then. So that's what I compare it to. So I always think it's safe.
The other thing I'll say about Levis versus Bryce Young, who are you going to trust to stand in the pocket more?
Yeah, that's true.
Dude, Bryce Young takes one hit at that build. I'm sorry, I don't care how many hamburgers you ate that Sunday morning. It ain't gonna matter, buddy.
He's gonna start taking judo lessons with Tua.
Don't do that. Tua should not be doing judo.
That's what I was like, what? He's practicing judo?
He should not be doing that.
I mean, whatever. I don't think I can't possibly think it's just so impossible. I can't think mid-air. You know what I mean? You're getting tackled mid-air. You're like, let me adjust my body. You have this self-awareness. Let me adjust my body to this technique that I was learning.
The only combat sport that Tua should be doing it's called shadow boxing.
Oh God. I really hope we see Tua. That's what it is. I hope we see Tua play this year and play well. I hope for his sake. That's tough.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
actually, I have that in our topics to talk about. On the combine
yeah,
post.
as a
if we
fan
have
of
the time.
football, I think that we can just say like, yeah, go Tua, but I'm not a big Tua fan. Like, I'm not like a big Tua guy.
I think it's a little like I think a lot of quarterbacks can be successful
Right.
with
I'm
Tyreek Hill and
I'm
Jalen
also
Waddle,
not a
right?
Bills fan, but I sincerely feel for Damar Hamlin and his family, et cetera, right? Because I'm a football fan. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, yeah, you root for these guys because we watch football every week and we love them.
Yeah, and Tua is one of those guys. There's no reason to root against him. So I have my trepidations, but I hope he proves me wrong there.
Yeah,
With that,
absolutely.
we'll jump into the NFL Combine losers, and all I have is wide receivers up. I covered the big names today. There's a lot of winners and losers from the smaller name areas, but yes, the wide receivers were overall very disappointing yesterday. First of all, first name I have up here is Kayshon Boutte. And okay, can you confirm that one for me? I had a lot of argument. Are you sure?
He's from New Orleans, brother. He's from New Orleans.
I looked this up and I was so confident.
New Iberia.
What? I was so confident.
Iberia, Louisiana, son.
I gathered arguments from both sides and I assembled a lot and I kept going back and I thought I determined it was Boutte. All right, Boutte, fine. All right.
He's from New Orleans. I mean, they ain't saying Boutte down there. They're saying Boutte. They're saying Boutte. They're not saying booty.
All right, I love it. Oh man, we need to get you on a stand-up comedy stage too at some point. I love it.
I don't know about all that. Leave that to Sean.
Boutte did measure in at 5'11", 195 pounds. Very poor vertical and broad jump. Second percentile vertical. It's 32nd percentile broad jump. 4.5 40. He's not blowing anybody away at his size.
Yeah.
Had a very good rookie season. Has a 98th percentile breakout age. That shows he was very good as not a rookie, as a freshman at LSU. Mm-hmm. And then, he battled injuries and kind of inconsistencies, kind of displays maybe some lackluster route running, people say, last year at LSU. He might have sent, he was considered maybe being a first-round pick. I think, maybe that's a long shot now at this point. I think he's still solidly a day 2 pick, but, I think we see him in that round 2 range. What did you take away from him?
Man, should have been inactive. And it's always tough for me to like kind of weigh this out. Like, should you go to the combine? Should you just show up and do interviews and then decide to sit out? And I was thinking about this yesterday from like a GM standpoint. Like, what do I want to see? You know what I mean? If I'm a GM and I'm going through this process, and man, from Boutte, I probably would have wanted to see a lot less because coming in, the scores are not very good. He ranks 48th in athleticism at the wide receiver position, 23rd in total score. Per the stats, it says that he's going to be an average starter at some point in his career. I don't necessarily love the build. I think that we were looking for better results this weekend. So for now, it's going to be a wait and see until, his stock is down until he gets it right now, in my opinion, on a team where it feels like he's just going to have opportunities to work. He's going to get opportunities to touch the field. So right now, I mean, if you're, again, somehow doing startup drafts or rookie drafts, I would be off of him. I just wouldn't be on him right now, period. Because everything that I'm seeing from everyone else is going up. Things are looking better. For Boutte, not so much. And again, like just what we saw overall, it's pretty average. It's just, there's nothing indicating like, oh, this should be an exciting player. He's going to move up the board. People are going to be fighting tooth and nail to get him. It's just a sit and hold, and I would bench him right now from like draft, prospects, at least in fantasy.
If I was doing a draft today, I would draft him in the mid-second round, likely. He'd be in that wide receiver 7 or 8 for me, likely.
Okay.
That's in a rookie draft. Are you thinking lower? Mm-hmm. You're thinking lower?
I'm probably thinking closer to round 3. And again, It just depends on how the board plays out, like what other guys are going to be available for you there. We've seen just some names shoot up. Like Jalen Hylett did very well. I think that he was still kind of firmly ahead of him, but people were, really talking up Boutte this past like week and a half, 2 weeks. So I feel like the stock is definitely down, and people may just have to, come down to earth with his value a little bit. If you got him in the 3rd round, I feel like you're comfortable with that pick right now. Like you feel like you're not reaching, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely wouldn't be reaching there. I think that's a great upside there. I think he is a great value at the late second, even. Mid to late second, I think is probably his value range. draft capital will be ultimate determination for me. If he goes in the early second, it's wheels up still. I think, he has a lot of upside still. If he's going in the late second, early third round and there's 12, 13 wide receivers taken ahead of him, that's another story.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got a month and a half nearly to make up ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pro days and whatnot.
Exactly. And I'm sure he'll do that. But again, it's like, there's so much pressure on the combine. And that's what kind of gets me back to that idea of like, if I'm a GM, what player do I want to see? Do I want to see the guy that comes and lays it all out on the line, but maybe doesn't put up the best numbers, or the guy that's going to come up or come to the combine, not do much and just say the right things? Like it's a very interesting way to play, yourself into the hands of these owners and GMs.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes in draft. I actually drafted him in with my 112 in a super flex rookie draft like a month ago. But obviously I wouldn't do that today. I like the talent profile then, but some poor testing has changed that just a bit. The next guy I have up is Jordan Addison, and I got beat up. I was kind of pointing this out. People are very contentious on both sides. Anytime I say something about his poor athletic testing, it's like, this guy's a football player. Okay, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. Okay, well, and then they point to Devontae Smith. I'm like, okay, there was one guy. You know what I mean? One guy does this. At his size, and and kind of Devontae Smith was not an extremely athletic guy either in the 40 or anything like that, especially for considering his size. It's slightly faster than Addison, and that's a good player comparison. However, that's one guy. And Devontae Smith was a 2,000-yard receiver his final season out of Alabama, so very, very good. Not to say that Jordan Addison's chopped liver; he's fantastic as well. But we're not talking about just a poor athlete for I don't want to call him a poor athlete, but it's first percentile. For factoring in his size, he is in the first percentile athletic score, and that's not like the best. That is the worst. That is 99 percentile. People are better than you considering their size athletically. So, yeah, I mean that was really poor. 5'11", 173 pounds. I think there's been like 20 wide receivers in the last 25 wide receivers in the last 25 years who have tested below that weight. So that's he's in a lot of outlier territory, and if you're that size, it should be concerning for Jordan Addison looking at Anthony Richardson that he can catch him in a race. You know what I mean? Like Anthony Richardson can catch me in a race. Like, what do I have? You know what I mean? Right. I'm very trepidatious. The 2023 draft class didn't quite turn out how some of us had hoped, and maybe it turns back around. That's what the 2022 draft class did. That shows what little we know. But so I have a hard time moving him lower than 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 in a Superflex rookie draft, but I am a lot more trepidatious about drafting him. Had some issues with injuries as well, but did have that terrific, almost nearly 1,600 yards in 2021. And he did have a 20% target share his first 2 years at USC as well. So what are some of your thoughts on Jordan Addison? I know you still had him as your wide receiver too.
Well, being a resident of Maryland, he's the pride of Frederick, Maryland. That Frederick, Maryland was the first. Yeah, the first place that I moved to. So I have no means to badmouth him whatsoever. I also think he's going to wind up coming back home, probably going to go to the Ravens at pick 22 because Disaster.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the same team that grabbed, was it Marquise Brown? I mean, I'm not saying he's exactly him. I think I saw the comp of Tyler Lockett. I hope that's the case. But you know what Tyler Lockett has? Strength. He is a strong dude. He's athletic.
Jordan Addison is not a strong man.
Hit the gym. You know what I mean? But that, we've seen teams like that. And I felt like that was a similar situation. It's oh, he's from Maryland. The Ravens are picking at 22. We just saw them, draft, Marquise Brown and then Rashad Bateman.
That would be a disaster.
It could be the case again. It could be the case. No, I hope he gets a better landing spot. Of course, when we're talking about top receivers, coming off the board, we want them to go to prolific offenses. We want them to go to pass first offenses. Well, Jordan Addison is definitely going to depend on his landing spot as far as his draft stock for dynasty purposes. Yeah, right now I would hold him at number 2, but the landing spot's going to be a big teller of what his career is going to look like. We've seen a smaller guy like Devontae Smith come in and have success, right? I hate to use the word lanky. Is there another word we can think, a trimmer, more trim? What's the word I'm looking for here?
Is lanky a bad term? I mean,
I don't know.
I would like to be called lanky. No one's called me lanky before.
I mean, I'm kind of lanky, and I don't know if
I'm short and Probably slightly overweight. Nobody calls me lanky. I'd love that.
I guess I would say I'm aggressive and lanky. I don't like, what I mean? I don't know what that means. But what I'm saying is we've seen these smaller receivers come in and have success. We've also seen smaller receivers come in and not have as much success. I like the tangibles of Jordan Addison. Again, this is a situation where we revert back to the landing spot. It sounds more of like an excuse than an answer, but it's the truth. Like, again, if he goes to the Ravens, you're probably not drafting him with your top 8 picks, right?
No, definitely.
Right.
No.
So, but if he goes to a team like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a pass heavy team that's kind of like fitting into the middle. I don't know. Let's just say he went to the Falcons and they got Derek Carr.
No, still not.
Still not. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he would have to go to like somewhere like exciting, like at the end of the first round, like one of those good playoff teams, like, the Chiefs or something crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
but I don't see the Chiefs making that move though.
No, that'd be too typical. We have too many short pass wide receivers. But yeah, the Ravens would just be a disaster. That's like typical. That's like
don't bet against it, buddy. Don't bet against it.
That would be horrible. That's just exactly, the Ravens just want to use him so they can take 1 to 2 defenders down the field. So they're playing so they can run the ball against nine guys. That's the whole.
But what they're going to look at is like, oh, we've got Rashad Bateman on the outside. We've got Mark Andrews up the middle. And now we've got Jordan Addison to clean up things out of the slot. This is going to be great. And he's from Maryland. Think about the amount of jerseys we're going to sell.
I hope for our Jordan Addison's fantasy value, I hope that's not the case. The next guy I have up here is Jalen Hyatt. And I mentioned to you, this is just a mini loser. Jalen Hyatt is very athletic. Projected to go in the first round. I'd like to have him on the Kansas City Chiefs, actually, maybe at the end of the first round. I had him as a mini loser just because all the hype that we saw. Like, this guy's going to run in the 4.2s. This guy's going to be the fastest guy. Ran a 4.41. That's impressive. That is fast. But that is not what we were hoping for. But still, 97th percentile burst, 91st percentile 40. It could have been a day where he maybe put himself in conversation for that, being one of the top guys in the class, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. But he's kind of sitting on that second tier now, firmly still, in my opinion. But he would, I think, 6 foot, 176 pounds. I think I have written here. So not a large guy either. That just seems that's the wide receivers this year. Just not a lot of big guys, not a lot of tall guys. Length, just kind of shorter. Not very big. But that's kind of the style that we're going to now. Not super productive his first 2 years in college, but did have 1,267 yards and 11 touchdowns as a junior, 21.6% target share. Early declare. Do you have any thoughts on him going forward?
Stock is up. Stock is up. I feel like he should be concrete in your first round in dynasty startups right now. I feel like he's done enough. I feel like the tangibles are there. Honestly, he's getting closer to Jordan Addison than we probably think. Especially after a showing like this, like you had said, the speed may not have been there, but the athleticism score was second for receivers. I'm assuming that's only behind JSN, and he had the best combine score total, 89 at this combine for all wide receivers. So we got to be buzzing about Buddy right now. There's only good news. As far as like fit and mold in the NFL, I feel like he would probably be more likely to be drafted by some of those teams at the end of the first, maybe beginning of the second. So I feel like he's kind of fitting into like that, 28 to 40 range off the board.
Yeah, I think so.
Does that feel about right? Because like we were talking like JSN, like he seems somewhere like, 7 to 15 maybe. And then Addison, like I had just mentioned, maybe around like that 22. So maybe like 18 to 25. And then maybe Hyatt somewhere, like I said, that range like 25 to 40.
And I think, he'd be a great player for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm hoping that the Chiefs maybe there's just nobody to have. Quentin Johnson is who I'm actually hoping the Chiefs draft. I'd love to have somebody who can, a little bit taller player. There's no DK Metcalf really in this class in that area, but I would, Quentin Johnson is 6'2", 208 pounds.
Who was the guy that won the bench press for receivers? That dude was stacked. And he blew out everybody else. Let me see if I can pull that up. Go ahead.
I think I missed the wide receiver benches. I think I was getting at work at that point. I missed the last couple things yesterday. I had to do some late night research last night to finish up.
This dude was absolutely stacked, though. What's his name? He's from Stanford. Michael Wilson from Stanford.
Michael Wilson. I don't know if I'm familiar with him yet. I've heard the name. I've crossed.
He finished all of his scores were awful, but his fucking strength was out of sight. He had 23 reps, I think. What was it? 23 reps. The next guy was Jonathan Mingo with 22, so maybe he didn't blow it out then.
Well, I'll tell you, it's we all know the strong correlation between bench press and wide receiver production. So get yourself.
Well, I just mean the size was just he's 6'2",
I'm just kidding.
213, 31-inch arm length, and 9.5.
That's exactly maybe a little late round pick for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'd like to hear that.
Well, that's what we always see, like, yeah, these teams, they go and draft Trey Sermon, but Elijah Mitchell's the one bringing home the groceries. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole nother issue. Yeah. So Elijah Mitchell, just a thorn in my side at the end of my CMC shares last year. Before I forget, I just want to pay our last round and making sure we're getting the bills paid. So let me give one more shout out to Underdog Fantasy. We're also brought to you by them. Underdog is your home for off-season NFL best ball drafts, but they also have you covered for a ton of their daily games, including NBA, NHL, and PGA. Underdog Fantasy is a great way to get down on your favorite player props if they're not available in your state. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Please, Underdog, allow over-under betting in my state of Colorado. I can do the best ball drafts, but I still can't bet on over-unders one of these days.
Killing me.
The last thing I'll tell you to do here is, if you wouldn't mind, please giving our YouTube page a subscribe and a like. It would mean a lot, and we would really appreciate it. We're trying to build that up over there. So we'll finish up here with the winners and losers. Maybe we'll dive into a couple player stories as well. But the last guy I had up here was just a Senior Bowl hype man, was Nathaniel Tank Dell. He had a big Senior Bowl. People were talking just burning cornerbacks, but that's very tough on the cornerbacks. It should be noted, because the wide receiver is getting to run whatever route they want, and the cornerback just is having to follow them. So that's a tough drill for them. So Nathaniel Dell was putting the moves on him, though. At the Senior Bowl, picked up a lot of hype. Mm-hmm. Some people were saying potentially a second-round pick. 5'8", 165 pounds. That is almost me. That's essentially me. That is I am running out there. I am not. We're about the same size. I'm like almost 5'8" without my shoes on, and like 160 pounds. So that's like me running around out there. And I can go ahead and tell you that's probably not going to work out well. And the worst part was that 8-inch 5/8. I don't know how to say it. 8-inch 5/8 hand size. I didn't say
8 and 5/8. 8 and
5/8. Yeah, 8 and 5/8. But and then 4.49 40-yard dash time. So that is, that's fast for the average human being, certainly, but not what you're looking for when you're super small. You're hoping he's a speed demon out there, and that is not what he showed. This is college production, though, 13 plus 100 yards each of those last 2 seasons. If this guy was 6'4", man, he probably would be really, really good. It's just, it's just not the deal. It's almost impossible for this guy. This guy can't go out there on a regular NFL field to compete on an every down basis. He might be a better NFL player than he actually is for fantasy. You know what I mean? You can get him out there for 5 or 6 plays a game, maybe, scheme, there's a scheme plays for him and things like that. He's that type of, playmaker out in the open field, but just not a fantasy contributor, in my opinion. Probably not someone I'm looking at before the late 3rd round.
I'm probably not going to draft him at all. And the big reason is, I think the biggest concern about coming into this weekend and even the Senior Bowl was, is he going to be anything better than just a special teams player in the NFL? And I don't think that he's done anything really in these 2 opportunities to show that he's going to be anything other than a special teams runner and gunner. If he goes to the right place where they can scheme up for him, I mean, honestly, if I'm looking for a dream spot for him where I think like things could happen, it's San Francisco, because of the creativity, the way that they use all of their weapons in totality. There's no one that's off the table, right? So if he went to somewhere like that where he might be able to get a shot, he might be able to get on the field, that would be the case. But I don't see him being anything more than a special teams player. And that might be harsh, but that's just where I'm coming from. I think that was still the strong belief about him coming into the combine. I don't think he did anything to change that circumstance or that perception of him. Yeah,
and I hope the best for the guy, but it's just impossible. It sucks when there's just a physically limited player who's talented, but that's just what I see. The talent's there, but just not a physical player for the NFL and for the fantasy landscape, in my opinion. So just a late round flyer, in my opinion. But yes, wide receivers overall disappointing yesterday. We'll see what happens with the running backs today and everything. So that'll be fun to see. I'm excited about Roshan Johnson testing. Let me go ahead and tell you that. I'm hoping he shows out today. And if that's the case, I could see him jumping as high as RB3, RB4 in my ranking. So we'll see. That's a lot. It's not quite there yet. Not quite there. But, with the right landing spot, with the right athletic testing, I could have him potentially ranked as high as my RB3. So with that, I just, talked a lot about the winners and losers of the NFL draft. So I will just pick some of my favorite NFL stories to talk about from the NFL Combine here.
Sounds good.
You know what? I want to talk about your Bears real quick. We talked about it a little bit last week, but obviously it's you're leaning toward selling your first pick in the draft, obviously, because you're comfortable with Justin Fields rolling forward. But yeah, if Justin Fields doesn't work out as well, I thought it's a good point. Yeah, if Justin Fields, you weren't comfortable with him after this year, you're likely going to have an early pick next year, and that 24 quarterback class is looking very good as well. So that'll be an opportunity for you. But what do you see? Like, what do you have the ears, foot on the ground, you would say, for the Chicago Bears? You're in there and you're reading all the stuff. So what are you reading the tea leaves so far?
Nothing. There's no real news other than, they want to shop the pick for sure. They're going to do their due diligence. I don't think that you're going to see anything happen like in the next week or so. I think this is going to be something that they're going to really test the waters on. I feel like the benchmark should be similar to the Trey Lance trade. So we need 3 firsts because and I think you'll agree with this. CJ Stroud is a better prospect overall than Trey Lance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Bears know that the Colts and the Texans both need a quarterback, and they both want to invest in youth, specifically the Colts, because just look at what the experiments have, brought home the past 2 seasons. Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, 3 seasons, my bad. Like it hasn't been good. So they obviously have to be looking to, revamp the franchise with some youth at the quarterback position. Same thing kind of goes with the Texans. Like they've been dabbling, but it hasn't been working. So in my opinion, it's 3 firsts and a second. From whoever. It should be 3 firsts and a second. The Colts have their next 3 firsts available and a second. Maybe they can't do the second in with that, but that should be where they're starting. And that's not to say that that's what they're going to bring in. But when you're starting the conversation, I'm saying, yeah, man, CJ Stroud, he looks pretty damn good.
Is there anybody you're hearing, the Colts, anybody else you're rumored to be moving up potentially?
Yeah. I mean, the Colts have been all the talk about moving up, and they should be. They have their 2nd round pick, they have their 1st round pick, and they have future firsts. So 23, 24, 25 first.
Okay.
Any others?
Any other destinations? Colts, Texans?
I don't know who else is going to move up other than those teams, because they're right there. There's not another top 10 team that I could see doing it. Like maybe the Falcons, like if we want to move to 8, but you have to, if you're the Bears, you can't be moving this draft out of the top 10. You have to be looking for a partner inside the top 10, in my opinion. Otherwise, what are we doing? Like, you're not going to get Will Anderson. We need to boost up the defense more than the offense right now. It's very simple. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did San Francisco get,
3 firsts?
Yeah, they gave up 3 firsts, but was any of those firsts early? I thought they were all maybe later.
I think they were all later. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 3 later first for Trey Lance. So just something to consider. If you're getting a top 10 pick back.
And again, I get that. So if you can't get the 3, okay, who's willing to give us 2? No one's willing to give us 2. Okay, then we at least need 1, and then a bunch of other comp picks like multiple seconds, whatever. That should be where you're starting. That should be where you're at, and then you can work your way down from there, because that's how negotiation works. That it's never just like, oh, this is what I want and someone's going to give it to me, but that should be where they're starting, period. I've seen the Will Anderson moving back to 4, taking Will Anderson. I think that's a good start. Not so much interested in Jalen Carter right now, given his situation with the law, clearly, right? What was it? Nolan Smith was running up amok at the linebacker position at the combine. I'm not
take a linebacker. Don't take.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's some nice assets on defense. I'm not trying to work him into that conversation, but I think that's going to be their priority in this draft, is to build up their defense. And I think that they can do that by moving back and, taking a nice haul of picks. We have a lot of picks in this draft. I think they're mostly later picks, like rounds 4 and 5, but we could even work those in to move up and just try to, concrete ourselves in the first and second round. So I just don't see them keeping the pick. Like if they keep the pick, they're just going to take Will Anderson first.
Well, or how about you hold these people over the fire actually and make them and call out their bluff. They're saying you're not going to draft a quarterback and just be like, I will draft Bryce Young and I'm going to make you trade for him in the summer now. You know
Please don't draft Bryce Young. Please don't draft Bryce Young. Or
CJ Stroud. I would draft CJ Stroud, but I feel like the consensus in the league is Bryce Young.
And from a fan perspective, like I get, and like a football analyst, whatever, like I would understand. I would get if the Bears moved on from Justin Fields. I just don't see why they would with how well the offense played this past season with the few amount of assets and weapons that they had. I just don't see how you do that. If they want to continue to blow it up, by all means. But taking that first pick, you're not getting back that bounty of picks that would help you build up the future. Like it can still go both ways.
You know, the one thing I was telling you last week is, you know, it's tough for a lot of these quarterbacks now because Patrick Mahomes, although that was a huge contract 4 years ago, now it's almost in line with just what people are signing for, $50 million.
So, and that's also because he set the market. Like you, not just him too, but when you look at Deshaun Watson's contract, that's absolutely ridiculous. Now you have Lamar asking for the same thing, if not better.
I was just having a conversation with somebody this morning. Lamar shouldn't be representing himself. I think that's a lot of the issue. You know, I think he needs to get an agent.
Nope.
But that's another conversation.
That 10%, homie. I'll save that 10%. That goes to my mama.
It's a whole thing. But we'll see what happens there. I think what I was going to tell you is that I just think that Chicago. It's tough if Justin Fields, if you're paying, if you're 2 years already away from paying Justin Fields, or 2 years, away from paying Justin Fields $45 million. That's tough. You know what I mean? You're already at the end. So I just was saying to you last week, it could be, if you liked any of these quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, it could be beneficial just with where your team's at to restart that rookie contract. You know what I mean? Be paying a quarterback cheap for the next 5 years again.
No, I hear you, but most situations like that, you don't have a team that has this much cap space. Like that is you like what you're describing is a very typical playbook move in the NFL, and I understand that. But when you have $100 million in cap, like I just don't see the necessity to move on from Justin Fields. I can get it, and if they did it from I would get it from a business perspective. But as a fan, you're just gonna hate it. Like you're gonna go into another rebuild. You're telling me with this much cap space, like having this draft capital and this much cap space, we should be a win now team. I don't care what anybody says. We should, like, everyone can say the right things like, oh, you need to build for the future. Oh, we need the right ingredients to have success and not just 1 year, but 4, 5, and 6 years. Like, no, like you have the weapons you need to go and attack this league. Use them. That's it. Use them.
Yeah, this Bears fan agrees with you. And, I think that's the big reason. I think, man, it would just be a punch in the gut to your fan base, to trade away Justin Fields. That could be tough to go face the fans after that. So I agree. Yeah. Man, we talk a lot about the prospects. I love that. That's what I wanted to talk mostly about today, and that's what we did. So that's perfect. Well, I think that's good. We can dive into some of the fantasy related news for next week. I think we'll call it there, everybody. I appreciate everybody joining us. Hopefully you learned something. I'm still, I'm researching these prospects myself. I start, I'm not a huge college football fan. So, I start my research in January and I start watching tape and I start, reading what smart people are saying. So I'm still forming my opinions as well. So thanks for joining us today while we work through all that stuff. Justin, what do you got going on this week, my man?
Not a whole lot. Probably going to have some articles coming out soon, doing some mock draft stuff like that. Really quick, when looking at Kayshon Boutte's draft profile on NFL.com, the very first thing it says is Boutte, pronounced BOO-TAY. So it's actually
there it is.
Boutte.
Boutte, like with an exclamation point at the end. Boutte. All right. I like it. All right.
Well, the Tay is all caps. So
that's funny. Well, everybody, I just dropped if you prefer written content, I did put up on TWSN. I put up a combine winners and losers, talking about a lot of things I talked about here. I also I'll be starting up a podcast for the Fantasy Football Face-Off group. I will be writing. I'll be doing a bunch of stuff. I'm working for like 5 or 6 different companies. I'll be putting out stuff for you, and it'll be coming out. So, thanks for joining us, everybody, on this Sunday, and we will see you again on the next Sunday. I appreciate y'all joining us. Have a great day.